Greetings and thanks for joining us once again. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. We wanted to do a brief show today to make the announcement that we're at 422,000 vehicles delivered and what the implications of that are. Just wanted to remind you, please take time to like and subscribe. And once again, this is Greg for Teslafaninsight. So as you know, Tesla usually announces right after the quarter ends the number of vehicles that were produced and sold. What then happens is we're waiting until the 18th until we find out what the profit margins were on those vehicles. But at least we can start to work with those production numbers as a way to extrapolate what profit and revenue might end up being. So please, just a reminder, I want to thank our Patreon supporters. We also want to encourage you to like and subscribe if you enjoy the show. So the main sort of issue or challenge that's popping up right now is that Tesla's working to grow towards just under 2 million vehicles sold this year. So right now, 422,000 for this quarter. That's actually a pretty good number relative to 321,000 that were produced and sold last year. Year-over-year growth, 36%, pretty good, I believe. But there's a difference between, A-level amazing numbers, B-level good numbers, C-level okay numbers. I would say that right now we're in that B-level good numbers, not bad, especially given that there's been some operating issues and challenges the company has experienced. So the other notes to make here is that 440,000 vehicles were produced. Analyst forecasts were between 410 and 450,000 vehicles. So we're pretty much right in line with what analyst expectations were. Now, are there other variables that could influence numbers differently as we head into the next quarter? The answer is we have a relatively small number of Tesla Semi that have been produced, and they weren't included in these numbers. And we also have the issue of we're supposed to, in June, start production/sales of the Cybertruck. So in theory, those could help boost the numbers as we move forward as well. So what do I think of this, and how is this all going to impact what we should be expecting from the stock market heading into the beginning of the week? Well, the argument that's been made is that the stock market hates surprises. They like consistency in terms of growth, profitability, etc. Has Tesla delivered that? I would say absolutely. And what are the implications of this? Well, the argument I'm making, and we'll see if the market agrees in a few days, is that we're on pace to do just under 2 million vehicles equals about a $240 stock price. So based on Tesla's normal growth rate quarter to quarter, and with new production coming on in Germany and Austin, the only question mark would be, are we a little bit soft when it comes to deliveries? And if that's the case, obviously we wouldn't make the number that's the target. But I would say that these numbers are in line with what we need to see in order for Tesla to deliver the numbers that Wall Street is expecting. So the next thing that pops up is, well, what are the investor options right now with a company that's delivering good numbers, not great, versus Tesla? So as we've talked about before, we have things like big cap growth, we have big cap growth technology. There are all these sectors. Other companies like a Google or an Amazon are having to slash employees in order to get their expenses down to kind of meet analyst expectations for earnings. Tesla has had to cut on price, and that cut we'll be finding out how much it impacted the earnings of the company. But revenue is looking pretty good, And the implications of not firing employees is that Elon/Tesla doesn't have any anticipation of challenges meeting those sort of revenue and profit targets that Wall Street might have in mind. So in general, what I would argue is that the news that we're seeing from Tesla, as I said, is good, not off the chart great. I don't think that the short-term traders will be thrilled with it, but I do think that long-term managers will be very happy with the number. And so I always find it interesting watching sort of what's going to happen here and what do I think is going to happen. Well, I think the short-term traders are going to say, meh, okay. And if the large institutions say, hey, those numbers are pretty good, we're going to see a nice little pop in the stock, but it'll be delayed by a few days so the large institutions can digest and respond to those numbers. So I generally think that that's what will occur. You know, I've gotten some lessons recently from a large money manager on Wall Street. And what he mentioned to me was that, right now we're in a zone where cash is king. People are doing 3-month and 6-month CDs or treasuries and avoiding the long. So we're facing an inverted yield curve right now, which usually portends a recession. So it seems like everybody's either predicting a recession, helping, like the Fed, for us to get to a recession, etc. My review of the circumstance is that I have a hard time figuring out how a recession happens when we're seeing a spike and real success in certain industries. Government business tends to be pretty solid. But right now we have a huge military buildup from countries around the world wanting US weaponry. And so there are certain sectors out there, like oil is still, 60s to 70s a barrel isn't great, but that's 25% of the market, and those guys are doing fine, and the oil services industries are doing fine. So there's, I guess, arguments out there where recessions could happen, but the problem I see is that if you have, banking is getting hosed right now, oil and oil services is actually doing pretty good, especially given the U.S. is producing and shipping all that oil and natural gas into the European market to deal with Mr. Putin. We also have another variable here, which is obviously the defense sector is doing extremely well. Obviously, there's a number of tech companies that are laying off because they don't have the cheap money anymore with which to just keep hiring tons of people. So there are sort of large sectors of the market that are doing pretty well, and they're hiring people, and those entities, if prices go higher, don't seem to mind paying those higher prices either, which is a nightmare that the Fed does not like, but because it encourages inflation. But I would say that I kind of don't see a recession for these reasons. Would love to hear your comment on this. Do we need a recession? Is it happening? Will it happen? And how do we deal with it? Excellent questions all, but I think that if we stay in this just about recession, not recession zone, we're in a great space for Tesla right now because there are very few entities that are seeing good numbers for Wall Street to look at. And even more important than current numbers is what the forecast looks like. If we can get to 300 to 500, 1,000 semis a month, that'll start adding some nice other numbers, and then add in Cybertruck. So I just see a lot of growth for Tesla that people can get happy about. So we'll see what happens with this. Obviously, we'll keep you up to date. So this is the finish of our discussion of earnings today. I wanted to review with you a concept in sleep research, and that is the afternoon nap. So your body operates on a 24-hour time clock. So what happens is that deep sleep or REM sleep tends to happen between midnight and 3 in the morning. So if you, even with an alarm clock, get between a 15-minute and a half-hour nap somewhere between noon and 3 p.m., it readily matches your body's sort of clock on a circadian rhythm and allows you to be more effective for the rest of the day, given you've had that nap. Please note, do not go over a half hour, because what that starts to do is shift your body clock off. Max half hour, 15 minutes to a half hour nap is something you may want to consider as a health measure. Thanks again for joining us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss, au revoir, lehitro, khoda hafiz, zdravствуйте, Russian, ni hao ma, Chinese, konbanwa, Japanese, namaste, Hindi. And in Jamaica we say enough respect, walk good man. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day, and bye for now.